Hey, what's up everybody? Pat here with Honorée Corder. I'm so excited because Jamie, who is in a mastermind group with me, introduced me to Honorée, and when I found out what you do, I got so excited, and because we're talking a lot about books, I have a book coming out, as you know, I just had to have you come in and talk about what you do. And she also works with Hal Elrod, who you know is one of my most favorite people in the world, The Miracle Morning, which changed my life. And so, Honorée, thank you for coming on the show.
My pleasure. I wouldn't be anywhere else right now.
Thank you so much. So I would love to get into how you are now working with Hal and the things that you do, but tell us your story, introduce yourself to the audience. Who are you?
Who am I? Well, I call myself now an authorpreneur. I've been a business and executive coach and speaker, motivational speaker, corporate trainer for 20-something years. Can I say that? That's too long, really. No, it should be 12 years. It's too long. And so I now call myself an authorpreneur because I primarily write books and help Hal with the Miracle Morning book series. But I also do some coaching with authors and with executives. And I do the occasional corporate training day and keynote speech.
That's awesome.
And then I have my beautiful daughter and my wonderful husband and 2 furry children.
2 furry children.
So,
I have one furry child.
I'm a full spectrum of responsibility.
I love it. And why go the authorpreneur route? What is so enticing about books to you?
Books can reach anyone, anywhere now, especially with self-publishing being accessible to anyone. And so I like the fact that although I could work one-on-one with someone and really impact their life, I could write my words down and someone could read my words and it could impact many lives. And so I really liked that aspect. And because we're talking about passive income,
right.
It's do it once and get paid for it forever. And Hal and I were having a conversation this week about even if you make $100 a month at something for the whole rest of your life, that can be a nice chunk of change that builds up. Yes, over time.
And it's cool when you can control that. It's on your own terms to do that. And book writing is something that I know is in a lot of our repertoire, and I'm getting involved with that now, and I've gotten a lot of inspiration from Hal too. And so I guess the first question I want to ask you, for everybody out there who is thinking about writing a book, where do you even start with that? It's such a big, this is something I struggle with, was just how big and grand writing a book is. It was just so intimidating to me. How do you even start moving forward? If you know you want a book, you have a book in you, I think everybody has a book in them, at least one. Where do you even begin?
Well, I think that you should kind of take a step back and define what you want the book to do for you. Because if you're just doing a collection of grandma's recipes, right, you can write that and go down to Kinko's and have 100 copies printed and pass them out at the family reunion or over Christmas dinner. So it doesn't really have an end game for you. But if you're really wanting it to be a piece of income for you, then I would think more strategically about what you want the book to do for you. And then nobody should write just one book, although you just said it's so big and intimidating.
Yeah.
I'm going to say write 3 books because people need somewhere else to go after they've read something that you've written. If you like something by an author, don't you go look up what else they've written?
Totally.
And if they don't have anything else, aren't you a little disappointed?
Very, yes.
Yes, and so you start with what's the book going to do for you? What's in it for you? That's the very first thing. And then it's what's in it for the reader. What is the very special thing that you know that you can share with someone else in the form of a book?
Right. Okay, and then does the answer to what will it do for you and what will it do for your audience, does that even determine how you go about creating the book? I know there's obviously, and I have to drop in the question, what's better, self-published or traditional? I'm sure it has an effect on that. There's so many aspects of book writing.
Yes.
Where do you go from there? Okay, so you figured out what you wanted to do, your plan in your business and your brand and that sort of thing, and you kind of have a topic in mind. What happens next?
Gosh, there's so many things, right? It's do you want to go traditional? And I'm going to say no.
No, we'll dive into that.
No, 1,000% no. And there are some people that would sit and take me to task on that.
Oh, I know, and that's why I love this topic.
And so I kind of will put on my boxing mitts and go, absolutely not.
Well, I'm self-publishing this book that's coming out, so you'll be happy to hear that. So we can still be friends.
Okay, good. Well, if you can get a traditional deal and you can get them to give you 7 figures up front, then yes, by all means, if you have the platform. But the rest of us, farm-raised girls from Ohio don't have a platform, and no one was writing me a 7-figure check. So once you've decided what the book is going to do for you and what the book is going to do for someone else, then you've got to go through all of the different thinking practices of what do I want to say in this book, because now Honorée just said I need to have a couple of books behind it. And then also too, how can I repurpose it? Because you can take a book and you can make a self-study course out of it. You can do an audio version, right? You'll want to do an ebook, a paperback, an audio book, a course.
Right,
Maybe a coaching program, a
conference.
Presentation, a conference. Yes, it can be multi-purposed in many, many different ways. And so it's kind of that funnel, right? Someone comes in with the $15 or $20 book, and then they have the $47 self-study course and the $200 audio and self-study course, and then they can bring you in to speak for $20,000. All these things can happen from this book.
Even with a self-published book these days.
I'm right here.
There you go. Living proof.
Yes. Yes.
That's really cool. And again, this process of writing, so the actual writing part of the book, I think that was more than anything the thing I struggled with the most. And it's interesting because I write a lot. I write a lot of blog posts, but whenever I came to that screen and that cursor was blinking, I just struggled.
It was a book, right? A book feels big and overwhelming and intimidating, but a blog post is
and
500 words.
It's a little more casual, and I felt like every single word had to be perfect.
Oh, please don't do that to yourself.
I've learned how to get out of that, but give some tips to people who are going to be into a book soon so that they can avoid what I did.
So you want to have a conversation with an avatar, and so I guess that would be one of the next most important steps is have someone that you write the book to. So my first books I wrote to younger Honorée, and now I write to an avatar. So it could be Sheila, who's 42 and she runs a business and has 2 kids and a husband and wants to go global with her business. And so the whole time I'm writing to Sheila. And so when some guy named Dan pops in and is like, I have a question, I'm like, I'm not writing for you, Dan, I'm writing for Sheila. It might apply to Dan, but it's definitely for Sheila. So I write to an avatar and have a conversation with your friend. So where you will have a voice that someone will recognize and know as yours is because it's your voice is speaking, right? So you want to have a conversation with your avatar, your potential reader, as though you're having a conversation with a friend. And so that's how I wrote all of my books before I didn't consider myself a book writer. I wasn't a writer.
It seems less intimidating to me.
It's less intimidating, and you just do it point by point. And so how I wrote my first book was Mark Victor Hansen, Chicken Soup for the Soul, co-author, said, Honorée, everybody's a coach and a speaker, you should write a book. And I'm sarcastic and snarky, as you all can tell by now, and I kind of went, hair flip, how hard could that be? And I was joking, of course, because you think, write a book, it's such a big thing. And yet he said, if you have a presentation that you've given over and over again, write that down. So it's something that you know, right? Where was I? A year ago. Yes, I was right here. So write down what you know as though you're talking to a friend or yourself or your younger self. What would you tell that avatar that you're writing to, and make it conversational, and don't worry about it being highfalutin $20 words, because no one wants to read that. It sounds technical and forced, but they definitely want Pat Flynn to call him up and have like, Pat, I have a problem. How do I make $100,000 a month? Well, this is where you start, and then you do this, and then you do that, and then you do this, and then you do that, and you go, I can do that. Thanks so much, Pat. I'm going to call you tomorrow with another question, and then that's another chapter. So take it easy on yourself. Like, take away the pressure of it's a book and it has to be perfect, because there's something that all self-published authors of multiple books will say, and it's that their first book kind of sucks, right?
Yeah, I've heard that many times.
And as you write more, you get better at it. So you're just building the muscle of writing, and the more you write, the better you get. And so I'm actually releasing my 10th anniversary edition of my very first book, because I kept going, but it's my first book. So I was like, aha, I can improve it. And so I did.
I love that. Another thing I know a lot of authors struggle with is just the fear of what other people will say about it. Because Amazon, for example, is a great place to leave comments that might not always be so enjoyable to read. And I know a lot of authors who have gone on the platform and who have really struggled through reading some of the more negative comments of their work. And I've learned over time through blogging and podcasting that I personally just have had to grow a thick skin and just remember that there are people who do enjoy the book. But do you have any tips specifically for people who maybe that mental block is there, those limiting beliefs in that realm? How can you help them?
Yes, so if you want someone's opinion, you'll give it to them. That's number one. Number two, never read or respond to, you can read them, but never respond to a 1 or 2 star review that is...
Okay, no, let's keep going with this, because Gary Vaynerchuk, through his example, who's somebody who I look up to, he responds to every single 1 or 2 star, and he says, hey, I'm sorry this book didn't work out for you, let's talk on the phone. And he gets on the phone with them, which is like, I'm like, wow, that's kind of cool. And then
that is cool.
Sometimes they follow up and they say, wow, I still don't like your book, but thank you for having that conversation with me, and it kind of eases that tension. But you're saying the exact opposite. So I'm curious to know why you should completely avoid doing that.
I think Gary can say that, and what a great take on it. I didn't know that's what he said. I have a lot of admiration for Gary. And
but he's Gary also, which
here's the thing is I was going to say he's Gary, and he probably has like buffalo hide at this point, right? Like, so he can take your 1-star review and go, let me just tell you what you really think.
Yeah, right.
You're not going to give me a 1-star review because I'm going to Gary you out of it, right? So he has the ability at this point to kind of say, let's have a dialogue about it and let me come at it a different way. The general advice is just don't listen to it until that was the rest of it, right? Until you have a thicker skin.
Right.
But also too, sometimes what people will say is valid. And so you can, if it's coming from the place of, I'm just jealous of Pat Flynn and so I want to give him a 1-star so that whatever. But here's what you don't realize is that if someone looks at a book and it has only 5 stars, don't you think it's just all their friends and family that posted their 5-star reviews? Like, the 1-star, actually, the 1, 2, and 3 stars are actually validation that it's a real book and real people have actually read it and weighed in on it. So I just kind of let it
that's so interesting.
Roll off my back at this point. And I don't have time. Like, where does he find this time to get on the phone with everybody?
I mean, he just spoke at this conference we were at, and he has 16, 17-hour days just doing all that stuff.
Okay.
And he is Gary. He is in his own world for sure, but he's doing it.
Yes.
And very inspirational, of course. So continuing on this book conversation, let's get into more of the marketing stuff. Like, I know that marketing doesn't happen when a book is done being written. It can happen beforehand. When does it actually start?
1975 was like a really great time to start building your following, but today is like another great day to start it. As soon as you know that you're coming out with a book, start talking about it. Start talking about it with your list, and if you don't have a list, start building a list, right? So post it on Facebook. I have a book coming out and here's the topic. What do you think about this? What's your take on that? Like, crowdsource a little bit and then quote people in your book. They really dig that.
Totally, yeah.
So build your brand, build your platform all the time while you're writing your book. And then I actually would advise everyone to actually form an advanced reader team, and those are your people that are going to read the book ahead of time, like while it's still in the final production stages, so they get that, the book is still ugly, we haven't made all we haven't put the fine tip on everything, but we want you to kind of read it and be ready to post a review. You let them buy it at 99 cents, so it's a verified review. And then before the book is live to the whole world, it's live on Amazon for your readers to go and start to post some of those preferable reviews. And the more you can get, like for example, the Miracle Morning for Network Marketers we just released about a month ago, and we had 700 people on our advanced reader team, and 380 reviews later, it really came in with a bang.
Yeah,
like,
that's awesome.
This is the book, and it was #1 from the minute it was released, and it's still #1. And I think it'll be #1 for a really long time because we offered in that support. And I will say to anyone, you can read any one of my books for free if you'll post an honest review. And I really do want an honest review. I want a 5-star review, I really do. But I really want an honest review. I'll take an honest review over a 5-star review. Hopefully they're the same.
Right, of course. And in this sort of launch team that you created for Hal and any other books that you might have done, like how are you communicating? What tools are you using to manage that community?
So we have a private Facebook group that we invite people to join so that we get to communicate with them, and we're messaging and letting people know, and this is where we are, and get ready and come on. And then of course they're getting their own private email. So actually I have, and we had for the book, like separately, right? For each of my books, I have that team has their own email list, and I'm communicating with them. So I give all of my advanced readers the option to read any of my books before they come out, and then email them directly and say, okay, it's coming, and do you want it? Yes, you want it? Okay, then you're on this specific list and you're gonna get these emails from me. And so I'm always thanking them and giving them extra free bonus stuff and just doing that extra level of, you're my people, right? And
then can this be done for fiction and nonfiction?
Oh yes, the fiction people have it all
I
going
bet it's
on.
even, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, it could be even more ravenous because they're in a story. They're getting to be involved in who the characters are and what the story becomes.
And fiction writers, successful fiction writers will tell you to always have at least 3 books before you release the first one, because you want to give away the first one for free and have an excerpt from the second one in the back and have people ready to go into the next one. And so actually that's something I do with some, like I have ACE series for single moms, and so in each of the books in the back I have a little kind of like, here's chapter 1 of the first one, and they get to the end and they're like, oh, and I'm like, oh, and you can go right here to buy. Right?
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that. And let's go over to Hal's books a little bit. You know,
Sure.
Miracle Morning, huge success,
Yes.
changed a
Yes.
lot of lives. He has an amazing
Yes.
Facebook community. If you're not there already, you can check it out on
Yes.
Facebook,
Yes.
Miracle Morning Community. And, you know, Hal and I have spoken on the podcast before and whatnot, and he had told me privately a long time ago that he was going to be sort of repurposing or, you know, kind of reshaping the book
Yeah.
that was so successful for other groups of people. And it did remind me of the Chicken Soup for the Soul for this group of people, Chicken Soup for the
Yep.
Soul for this people. And
Yep.
this is so smart to me.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what the technique was or what the strategy was when this idea came about. What were the steps to move forward into this different direction? How did you pick? I guess the first one was real estate,
The first one was real estate.
and then how did you select that one out of all the other different niches I guess he could get into?
So Hal, before he had connected with me, and so he found me because I posted a 5-star review on Goodreads for him, which is another place you can go and give love to your favorite authors. You too need a Goodreads profile.
Okay.
Okay.
I have one for an earlier ebook that I did.
Okay, excellent. So just send people
So I
there
can use that same
too.
profile
Yeah.
for the new book.
Absolutely. Yeah, just find your book. So I had left him a review. I read The Miracle Morning and kind of went, oh, I do all this stuff. Why didn't I write this book? Like, wow, that's awesome. And so I wrote a review for him, and he said it was the only review from Goodreads that he had gotten an email for he'd ever read. And he looked me up, and I had a series. I had the Single Mom series.
Mm-hmm.
And so he messaged me and said, would you like to do The Miracle Morning for single moms? And I was like, let's talk about it. Because I had written the last book for the single moms. I had done 6, and I was like, I'm kind of done with that. Of course, tell God your plans, right? So like, here comes Hal with, let's write another book.
Exactly.
Okay, so we talked about it. And in that first conversation, he said, I've been looking for someone to help me serialize the book. So before he had met me, he had found people to write real estate, salespeople, and network marketing. They were people that he had been connected with. So those books were already in the queue, but he just wasn't quite sure how to, you know, get those ships into outer space. And so I came in and we strategized like what was the best way to do it. And then I started working with the individual co-authors to get those books published.
What are some tips you have for serializing a book, or is this something that all books can or should do?
I don't know if every book can be serialized. It can go niche-y like E-Myth and Chicken Soup and The Miracle Morning, right? I don't know if every book can do it, but I think that if you have a book that's successful, one of the things that really great books do is they take an idea and they drill it all the way down. Like I'm good friends with Rich Fenton and Andrea Waltz, who wrote Go for No. The sales book, right? Self-published book, 350,000 books sold, amazing. And they took the concept of getting no for an answer and blew it up into a thing. And so if you can take something from each of your books, if you have 7 or 8 chapters and each one of those are ideas that you can take down and like really then drill them down and broaden that out, like that's what I would do with a nonfiction book. So I could take a chapter from one of my books, which is Get a Coach, and I could do 10 chapters on why would you hire a coach and how would you hire a coach and how would you, and how would you pick a coach? And I would take each of the W questions. That's where I would start in my head and go the how, where, when, what, why, right?
Yeah.
And drill that out and then answer some other questions and then find people who had coaches and interview them and like interview coaches and just kind of do all that stuff. So
that's awesome. That's a great tip.
Yeah.
I love that. And to finish up here, I have another question in terms of for those existing authors out there who already have books, maybe for those who will eventually have books on Amazon, self-publishing, or traditional, what have you. They're just, you know, it's kind of, they're getting some downloads here and there. Like, what could an established author who's not seeing the success they want do to, you know, really launch their book post initial launch?
Write another book. Write another book.
Really?
Get another book into production because Amazon likes multiple. They want to make money, so they're looking for the books that are making money. And the more money your book is making, the more Amazon kind of steps in and markets to the people that you could never otherwise reach. So write another book is great. So there are lots of things you can do. Make sure that you have an author page on Amazon and build it out and claim your book. Put a picture up there, make posts, have people take pictures of the book with themselves and add it to your page, right? Fill out your bio. Make sure that your keywords are great. A lot of people don't know that a keyword in Amazon is actually a keyword string. Did you know this?
No, please explain.
So if you are doing a book on marketing, let's say, you wouldn't, when you're filling in the back end, like in KDP, where you're doing the back end of your book, it'll put your 7 keywords. They're actually keyword strings. So you wouldn't put like marketing, comma, advertising, comma, sunshine, comma, dogs, barking, right? A keyword is actually a keyword string. So how how you can figure out what would work for your book is you go into the search and you start type in the word marketing and see what pops up underneath it. And those are keyword strings that you can put in.
What's an example of a keyword string?
What are great ways to market?
Okay, so an actual like phrase, not just
Yes.
what's this book
Yes.
about, but what are things that actually people are typing in?
Yes, people, when someone's looking for a marketing book, what is the string? What are the words that they're looking for? What is the question they're looking to answer with a book?
So, yeah, I guess when I think about it, I'm like, people aren't really putting marketing in the title. It's more specific.
They're looking to solve a problem. How do I sell more X?
Got it.
Right? How do I get my brand in front of other people? Might be a marketing string. So you would type that in and see if it auto-populates, because Amazon's very smart. They are trying to already tell you, Pat Flynn, this is the book you want to read. So
Right.
they auto-populate it for you, and then something pops up. And that's what you can take as a keyword string and just try it. So those are just a couple things.
I love it. So you could even go back and redo some of those things if you had potentially done
Oh,
them.
absolutely. Yes. Make sure that people know that you're an author. Put that on a business card. If you have one book, then do a business card where one side is your contact information and the other side is your book. Do postcards. I have postcards of some of my books with a QR code that takes people to Amazon. So whenever I'm traveling, I'm leaving them in the Southwest magazine in the backseat pocket. I'm leaving them in Starbucks. I kind of seed my books everywhere. So I leave books all the time in Starbucks. When I go pick up a Starbucks, I'll leave a book in the little lending basket where the newspaper is. Just put your book in there, because the way for people to find out about your book is by word of mouth. The number one way someone finds out about a book is because someone says, you have to read this book. It's amazing, The Miracle Morning, right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
have you read The Miracle Morning? No, I haven't read it. Oh, you have to read it. But if someone tells you about it, that's how you're going to find it. You're very rarely going to go, I don't have any books to read. No one's mentioned anything to me in ages, right? More likely you have a whole bunch of books that someone has said, this is really an important read for you.
Now, I know I said that was my last question, but now another one came to mind, so I have to ask it.
Okay.
And this goes along with what we said earlier about, okay, it's not just a book, but it could become other things, courses, conferences, things like that. But I'm curious, how do you, or what's your strategy for understanding who your readers are? Because on Amazon, you don't get to collect those email addresses from your customers, for example. So do you do anything to capture those email addresses or get to know who your readers are and, you know, to be able to serve them other things down the road?
So I have multiple lists for different things. I think I can give you a case study, a real quick case study.
Sure, please.
So I was at a conference earlier this year, and the attendees were all writers. A lot of the writers came and they said, I'm not making any money from my writing. You know, I'm working in this job, it's awful, it's killing my soul. And so I went, well, of course you make money from your writing, but it's mindset stuff. So I had an idea. I thought, I'm going to do a course called Prosperity for Writers. And so I had anybody who was like, I want to make more money from my writing, but from a mindset perspective, not from a marketing perspective or a writing perspective, because there are all kinds of resources on that, but I wanted to go mindset for them. So I did a 4-week course, I recorded it, so now it's for sale as a course, Prosperity for Writers course, and then I did the Prosperity for Writers book. Then I was done, right? Except people were writing to me and saying, what kind of journal do you use for the journaling exercises? And I went, self, I said, maybe you should do a journal. So I did the Prosperity for Writers productivity journal, because some people get stuck on that word prosperity and they go, oh, it's woo-woo, and I'm actually very practical. So now the course, I wanted to test my theory on people, because it was like, could I take my prosperity principles that I knew and practiced as a business person and apply them specifically for writers? And so I proved that concept, and then I turn those case studies into a book, and then it's a journal. And now it's actually going to be a series of books, because I'm going to drill down. I'm going to do the Prosperous Writer's mini guide to Amazon keywords, for example.
That's really cool. I like the idea of having other products involved to help people through that book. I think that's really cool.
Yes.
For people who self-publish books and they don't have a list, but maybe they're selling on Amazon, or maybe they built a list, a small one or whatever, but is there a smart way to have readers who find your book on Amazon to collect their information in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, so in the beginning of the book and in the back of the book, do a call to action. Give them something in exchange for their email. So do an ethical bribe, right? So give them free chapters of another book. Do a download of some kind. I have a book where you can do a 100-day plan, and so they can go somewhere in a resources page, put in a keyword, and get a download of that 100-day plan, right? So it's kind of like, you give me your email address, I give you this, and now you're on my list. Because the thing about Amazon is that they're big daddy, right? They're not giving it up. They're not telling who your readers are. So you have to do it another way. So do it at the beginning of your book, because you're going to do a print version, and that's going to be the first thing someone sees. But in Amazon, in a Kindle version, sometimes they take you right to chapter 1 when you open a book. You ever notice, right? Like they go boop. So then you have to put it at the end too.
Smart.
So front and back in all of your versions, like do that call to action.
I love it. Super actionable. Thank you so much, Honorée, for coming
pleasure.
on SPI TV. And if you wanted to mention where people can find out more about you and what you have to offer, feel free.
Honoreecorder.com. HONOREECORDER.com.
You rock. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.